Today's topic is on HDB flats going up in terms of prices. But before that, let's touch a bit on inflation because in the latest report, everything has gone up in terms of price. Food, 2.1% increment in December. I've even heard rumors that NTUC might have to raise prices of all its products somewhat. What about petrol? 10.7% increment in December. No wonder right now when I pump, I need to spend at least $100 for a full tank. And the whole part about inflation is it really impacts everything in our life. I recently went to Hans and being frugal, I used to order that set meal which is the cheapest, grilled fish at $9.80. And to my haora yesterday, it's been increased to $11.80. A jump of $2, but if you think about it in percentage terms, it's 20%. Now with everything going up, there's of course good news also that inflation can bring to you. The first is wage inflation. If you see this report by Mercer, you see that on average, wage inflation will be about 3.5% for 2022. What about the Singapore savings bonds? The highest since 2019. But I've digressed a bit. Let's pull back to HDB prices itself and why is it going up so steeply? HDB rentals have really been climbing. I've also even seen before on forums and Facebook groups that people have been gloating that they've been able to up their rent by 20 or 30% quite easily. That has led to a new HDB resale market high, which is a 12.7% increment year on year, which is the steepest full year climb since 2010. If we scrutinize for further information, 259 HDB resale flats changed at least $1 million, the highest number of $1 million flats so far. That is more than 3 times that of 2020, which only had 82 units. Of these, 40 units were transacted at least $1.2 million in 2021. That compares to only 7 in 2020. So that's why I have this new hypothesis. I think I've gotten it wrong. It's not going to be 1,000 $1 million flats in 2030. And before I give you that number, let me explain something that people often get wrong and something that people don't understand. And schools don't really teach this. And this is called exponential growth. When we see COVID-19 cases in mid-January, 1,000 only. And when it suddenly shot to 13,000, you see everybody start jumping because exponential growth is something that is very unnatural to us. We can't really imagine how it actually works. We are more used to seeing linear growth. That's why when exponential happens or compounding happens, you'll see that the number goes up very quickly. It's also how people get to $1 million in their CPF. Compounding interest on interest. If you see this graph over here, this is 100,000 in CPF special account. And using 20 years of compounding interest, you get this green line that goes up, correct? And the interesting thing is, at a certain point, the interest is even bigger than the starting amount. Now let's pull back to property cycle. My best guess is we would see a slowdown in property price gains for 2022, 2023. That's my personal guess. I have no crystal ball, of course. And my guess is because government has already fired a first cooling measure. In December, they actually raised the ABSD to 17% and lowered the TDSR borrowing ratio. And this slowdown could be for years, but eventually prices will have to climb again. This is a normal cycle of asset inflation. That's why I have this new number to share with you. My bear case scenario in 2030 is $2,000 million HDB flats. And the bull case, $5,000 million HDB flats. Now, if we use 2021 numbers of 259, how do we get to 5,000? Quite simple. If we triple it year on year, actually we'll get there by 2026. Because quite simply, when we compare 2021 to 2020, it was a triple. So when you compound triples, you get to 5,000 very easily. But that assumes a straight exponential up. Property also moves in cycles. And if we also agree on that cooling years ahead, then maybe the growth is not so fast. But it can really get to that number very easily. The total number of HDB units transacted for 2021 was 31,000. There are 3-room flats, 4-room flats, 5-room flats. And if you think about it, 5,000 units in 2030 transacting $1 million, that is actually still less than 20% of the total number, correct? And also illustrate to you compounding. Do you know that with 850,000, if your house is currently worth 850,000, and you compound it with just 2% per annum, it will become $1 million in 2030. You punch your calculator, you'll get that number. And actually 2% is not a lot because your CPF OA is giving you 2.5% already. Your CPF SA is giving you 4%. And you may be thinking, 2%? That's even lower than inflation rate. You don't believe that property price increment is that low. So maybe let's use a higher number, say 3.5%. What that means also is that each house that's worth $760,000 today, in 8 years' time, will become $1 million already. There are so many 760,000 HDB flats right now on the market. And as we know, Telok Blangah's BTO fetched a new record of 700,000+, and that was actually for a 4-room flat. In my opinion, that obviously has to blow past $1 million. So that's how we get to $5,000 million HDB flats in 2030. Now, I do understand that house is a very close topic to heart. And with that, let me open up an invitation to get mailbag questions. I'm actually inviting you to send soundbites to me if you have queries on your finances or houses, how you plan your finances towards buying the right house and retirement. Let me know your questions with the links below. So follow it and send me a soundbite and I'll try to answer it with a podcast. You can send me questions like, should you upgrade now and then downgrade in future? And actually, I can give you a quick answer already. First, stamp duties. When you buy houses, you need to pay stamp duties. Sell house and buy again, you need to pay stamp duty again. And in any case, when you trade houses, there are agent costs. There's also loan to pay when you take a bigger loan. And make sure that that loan is affordable. So when you think about upgrade, it should be something that's comfortable in terms of budget. So a subsequent question might be, what is the right budget for the house if you are a new first-time owner? Maybe I can suggest that answer also, which is using this 3-3-5 formula. The 5 over there is actually 5 times of annual income. And if your combined income with your spouse is 100,000, then aim simply for a 500,000 HDB property. If the combined income is 200,000, then you can go for $1 million property. It's really that simple. Once you stick to this 3-3-5, you'll find that you have access to invest. You'll find that your budgets are actually very comfortable. But some people also say that is very prudent. Let me stretch that number also a bit. If you are looking for $1 million flat, maybe we use 6 times. That means the combined income should be 167,000, which is just 80,000+ each. You can comfortably afford $1 million flat. So with that, let me round out the points. 30 years ago, HDB flats at $100,000 was unheard of. Today, it's almost impossible to find a 100,000 HDB flat. We are getting very used to $1 million HDB flats already. And why so? Because 30 years ago, someone earning 1,500 is actually pretty okay. But in today's world, you work any F&B job is probably going to pay you more than 1,500 already. So don't make that mistake of thinking that your income can increase, but the asset price doesn't increase. It's not like that. Everything inflates together. And your game is to increase your income faster than asset prices. Or pick certain situations where the asset price increases fast and start growing your wealth with that vehicle. So if you benefited from this podcast, smash the like button. And last shout out again, send me your questions in a soundbite and I'll feature them in a podcast for you. With that, I'll sign off from this podcast. Thank you for listening to here. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.